Julie, her dad, and my grandfather were off to the side talking nonstop about something, and my dad was over with Mrs. Baker looking about as stupid as I felt, standing by myself, talking to no one. My mom flutters over to me and says, "You doing okay, honey?" "Yeah," I tell her. But she first forces me over to where Granddad is anyway. "Go on, go on," she whispers. "Dinner will be ready in a minute." So I stand there and the group of them opens up. But it's more like a reflex than anything. No one says a word to me. They just keep right on talking about perpetual motion. Perpetual motion. My friend, I didn't even know what perpetual motion was. They were talking closed systems, open systems, resistance, energy source, magnetism. It was like joining a discussion in a different language. And Julie was saying stuff like, "Well, what if you put the magnets back to back, reverse the polarity?" Like she really understood what they were talking about. Then my granddad and her dad would explain why her idea wouldn't work, but all it did was make Julie ask another question. I was completely lost, and even though I was pretending to follow along with what they were saying, what I was really doing was trying not to stare at Julie. When my mom called us for dinner, I did my best to pull Julie aside and apologize to her, but she gave me the cold shoulder. And who could blame her, really? I sat down across from her, feeling pretty low. Why hadn't I said something to Garrett in the library? I didn't have to punch him. Why hadn't I just told him he was out of line? After Mom served everyone their food, Dad seemed to decide that he ought to be the one directing the conversation. So Mike and Matt, he says, "You're seniors this year." "Amen," they say together. "Amen? As in you're glad high school's over?" "Absolutely." My father starts twirling his fork. "Why's that?" Matt and Mike look at each other, then back at my dad. The regurgitation gets to you after a while. "Isn't that funny?" he says, looking around the table. "High school was probably the best time of my life." Matt or Mike says, "Seriously? Dude, it's totally lame. It's totally lame." Mrs. Baker shoots him a look, but that doesn't stop him. "Well, it is, Mom. It's that whole Robotron attitude of education. Confine, confute, conform. I've had totally enough of that thing." My dad eyes my mom with a little "I told you so" grin, then says to Matt and Mike, "So I take it college is out of the question?" God, what was with him? In a flash I was clutching my fork and knife, ready to duke it out for a couple of guys who pinched my cheeks and called me by baby brother. I took a deep breath and tried to relax. Tried to dive down to calmer water. This wasn't my fight. Besides, Matt and Mike seemed cool with it. "Oh no," they said. "College is a total possibility. Yeah, we got accepted a couple of places, but we're gonna give the music thing a shot first." "Oh, the music thing," my father says. Matt and Mike look at each other, then shrug and get back to eating. But Lunetta glares at him and says, "Your sarcasm is not appreciated, Dad." Lean, says Matt or Mike. "It's cool. Everyone's like that about it. It's a show me don't tell me thing." "That's a great idea," Lunetta says, jumping out of her seat and dashing down the hall. Mom freezes, not sure what to do about Lunetta. But then Mrs. Baker says, "Dinner is absolutely delicious, Patsy." "Thanks, Trina. It's nice to have all of you over." There's about 3 seconds of quiet, and then Lunetta comes in and jabs at the CD player buttons under the drawer slice bacon. "Lynn, no, not a good idea," says Matt or Mike. "Yeah, Lynn, it's not exactly dinner music." "Tough," says Lunetta, and cranks the volume. Boom whack, boom boom whack. The candles practically shake in their holders. Then guitars rip through the air and about blow them out. Matt and Mike look up at the speakers. then grin at each other and called over to my dad. Surround sound. Awesome setup, Mr. Losky. All the others were dying to jump up and turn the thing down, but Lunetta stood guard and just glowered at them. And when the song's over, Lunetta pulls out the CD, punches off the player, and then smiles, actually smiles, at Matt and Mike and says, "That is the raddest song. I want to hear it again and again and again." Matt or Mike says to my dad, "You probably don't like it, but it's what we do." "You boys wrote that song?" "Uh-huh." He motions Lunetta to pass the CD over, saying, "Just the one song?" Matt or Mike laughs and says, "Dude, we've got 1,000 songs, but there's only 3 on the demo." Dad holds up the CD. "This is the demo?" "Yeah." He looks at it a minute and says, "So if you're piss poor, how do you afford to press CDs?" "Dad!" Lunetta snaps at him. "It's okay, Lynn. Just a joke, right, Mr. Losky?" My dad laughs a little and says, "Right," but then adds, "Although I am a little curious. This is obviously not a home-done demo, and I happen to know studio times cost prohibitive for most bands." Matt and Michael interrupt him with a slamming hard high five, and while I'm getting uptight about my dad asking them questions about money, of all things, my mom's fumbling all over herself, trying to slip away my dad's big paw prints. When Rick and I met, he was playing in a band. Poached salmon was suddenly swimming down the wrong hatch, and while I'm choking, Lunetta's bugging out her raccoon eyes, gasping, "You played in the band? What did you play, clarinet?" "No, honey," my mom says, trying to hold it all together. "Your father played guitar." "Guitar!"